The morning sun painted the red soil of New Jedju in warm golden light. Kim Dae-ho wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked his crop readings on the small handheld device. The numbers looked good today. After 3 years of fighting this stubborn alien dirt, his experimental wheat was finally growing strong. Dae-ho had been a terraforming specialist once. Back on Earth, he knew how to make dead planets bloom with life. But that was before the accident, before his daughter got sick, before the doctors told him there was nothing they could do. Now he was just a farmer on a distant world, trying to grow food for the small human colony that called this place home. The farmhouse sat alone in the valley, surrounded by neat rows of green plants. Mountains rose up on all sides like giant red walls. It was quiet here, peaceful. That was why Dae-ho liked it. No crowds, no noise. No reminders of the life he left behind on Earth. He was checking the irrigation system when the sky exploded. A massive shape tore through the clouds above the mountains. Fire streamed behind it like a comet's tail. The object was huge, easily the size of a city block, and it was falling fast. Dae-ho dropped his tools and watched in shock as the alien vessel slammed into the mountainside with a sound like thunder. The ground shook beneath his feet. His farmhouse windows rattled. In the distance, a column of black smoke rose into the clear blue sky. Dae-ho's communication device buzzed. The voice of Park Min-soo, the colony administrator, crackled through the speaker. "All colonists, we have a situation. An unknown vessel has crashed in Sector 7. All civilians stay away from the crash site. Security teams are responding now." Dae-ho looked at the smoke rising from the mountains. Sector 7 was less than 5 kilometers from his farm. Close enough to walk. He thought about following orders and staying put. That would be the smart thing to do. But Dae-ho had never been very good at following orders. He grabbed his emergency medical kit and climbed into his old ground vehicle. The machine was built for farming, not speed, but it could handle the rough mountain terrain. As he drove toward the crash site, Dae-ho tried not to think about what he might find there. The smell hit him first. Burning metal and something else. Something organic and strange. The crashed ship had carved a deep groove in the mountainside. Trees were flattened for hundreds of meters. Pieces of strange metal were scattered everywhere. Dae-ho parked his vehicle and approached on foot. The ship was like nothing he had ever seen. The hull was smooth and curved, made from some kind of dark material that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols were carved into the surface. Steam rose from cracks in the metal. He heard it then. A sound that made his blood run cold. It was a roar, deep and powerful and filled with pain. But underneath the rage, Dae-ho heard something else. Desperation, fear, the cry of a parent in agony. Following the sound, he found an opening torn in the ship's hull. Inside, emergency lights flickered red. The air was thick with smoke and alien smells. Dae-ho covered his mouth with his shirt and pushed deeper into the wreckage. The corridor opened into a larger chamber. And there, in the middle of the destruction, he saw them. The mother was massive, nearly 3 meters tall and covered in scales that shifted from deep green to bronze in the flickering light. Her body was built like a warrior's, with powerful muscles and claws that could tear through steel. Blood seeped from wounds on her side and shoulder, but all her attention was focused on the small form cradled in her arms. The hatchling was no bigger than a human child. Its scales were pale and dull, lacking the vibrant colors of its mother. It breathed in quick, shallow gasps. Even from across the chamber, Dae-ho could see that the young creature was dying. The mother looked up as he entered. Her eyes were large and intelligent, filled with a pain that needed no translation. She made a warning sound deep in her throat, pulling her child closer. Dae-ho stopped moving. He raised his hand slowly, showing that he was not armed. "Easy," he said softly. "I want to help." The alien mother did not understand his words, but she seemed to sense his intentions. Her growling grew quieter, though she did not relax her protective stance. Dae-ho knelt down and opened his medical kit. He pulled out a scanner, one of the few pieces of advanced technology he still owned from his terraforming days. The device was designed to analyze soil and plant health, but it could also detect basic life signs. Moving very slowly, he pointed the scanner toward the hatchling. The mother tensed but did not attack. The device beeped softly as it worked. The readings made Dae-ho frown. The hatchling's cellular energy levels were dangerously low. Its metabolism was shutting down, but the pattern looked familiar somehow. He had seen something like this before. "What is wrong with your child?" he asked, knowing the mother could not answer. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Human voices called out in the distance. The security team had arrived. The alien mother heard them too. Her eyes narrowed and she pulled her hatchling closer. A deep growl rumbled in her chest. She was preparing to fight. "No, wait," Deho said urgently. He held up his hands again. "They will not hurt you. Let me help." Park Minsu appeared in the doorway, followed by 6 armed security officers. They all stopped when they saw the massive alien mother. "Deho, get away from that thing," Minsu ordered. "We do not know if it is hostile." "She is not a thing," Deho replied without moving. "She is a mother, and her child is dying." The alien seemed to understand the tension in the room. She rose to her full height, still cradling her hatchling. Even wounded, she was impressive, dangerous. Her message was clear. Anyone who threatened her child would have to go through her first. "Look at her," Deho said quietly. "She is not going to attack unless we threaten her baby. All she wants is to save her child." Minsu kept his weapon lowered, but his men stayed ready. "What do you suggest we do?" Deho looked at the readings on his scanner again. The pattern of cellular breakdown was definitely familiar. He had spent months studying something very similar in his crops. A metabolic disorder that prevented proper nutrient absorption. "I think I might know what is wrong," he said slowly. "But I need time to study this. And she needs medical attention too." The alien mother watched the humans with wary eyes. Her child's breathing was getting weaker. "Time was running out. Please," Deho said to Minsu. "Let me try to help them." "What harm can it do?" Minsu looked at the dying hatchling in the mother's arms. Even through the alien features, the love and desperation were unmistakable. "All right," he said finally. "But we do this carefully." "Very carefully." The alien mother seemed to sense that something had changed. Her growling stopped. For the first time since the crash, there was hope in her large, intelligent eyes. Deho picked up his medical kit and took a step forward. He had no idea if he could save the hatchling, but he knew he had to try. After all, every child deserved someone who would fight for them. Even alien children. Even on distant worlds under foreign stars. The mother watched him approach, her massive form trembling with exhaustion and pain. But she did not back away. In that moment, 2 parents from different worlds shared the same desperate hope. Maybe, just maybe, love could bridge any gap. Even the space between the stars. The Colony Medical Center had never seen anything like this before. The massive alien mother sat in the largest room they had, her wounded body hunched over her dying child. Dr. Yoon Hana worked quickly to treat the mother's injuries, while Deho knelt beside the hatchling with his scanner. "The bleeding has stopped," Dr. Yoon said as she sealed the last wound on the mother's shoulder. "But I have no idea how her body works. I am just guessing with everything." The alien mother rumbled softly, a sound that might have been gratitude. Her large eyes never left her child. The hatchling's breathing had grown even weaker during the trip to the medical center. Its pale scales seemed to be losing what little color they had. Deho studied the readings on his device. The numbers were getting worse. Whatever was killing this young creature was working fast. He had maybe 6 hours before it would be too late. "The cellular energy readings are dropping," he said to Dr. Yoon. "Look at this pattern. The cells cannot process basic nutrients. They are starving even though the body has plenty of food stored up." Dr. Yoon frowned at the scanner display. "That makes no sense. How can cells starve when there are nutrients available?" "I have seen this before," Deho said quietly. "In my wheat crops during the 2nd year, the plants had everything they needed in the soil, but they could not absorb it. They were dying of hunger in the middle of plenty." "Plants are not the same as living creatures," Dr. Yoon replied. "Especially not alien creatures. We cannot treat this hatchling like a crop." But Deho was not listening. He was thinking about those dying wheat plants. How he had spent months trying to understand what was wrong. The answer had been so simple once he found it. The soil was missing a key mineral that helped the plants process other nutrients. Without it, they could not convert stored energy into usable food. "What if it is the same thing?" he said suddenly. Before Dr. Yoon could answer, the door opened. Choi Junho walked in carrying a portable laboratory unit. The xenobiologist looked tired but excited. "I've been studying the tissue samples," Junho said. "This is amazing. The alien physiology is completely different from ours. But there are similarities to certain Earth organisms." "What kind of similarities?" Taeho asked. Junho set up his equipment on a nearby table. The cellular structure reminds me of some plant species. Specifically, plants that form partnerships with soil bacteria. They cannot survive without these tiny helpers. Deho felt his heart skip a beat. Partnerships with bacteria? Yes. Some earth plants need special bacteria to help them process nitrogen from the air. Without the bacteria, the plants die no matter how rich the soil is. Dr. Yoon looked between the two men. Are you saying this hatchling needs bacteria to survive? Not bacteria exactly, Junho said, but some kind of symbiotic organism, something that helps convert stored energy into usable fuel for the cells. Deho stood up suddenly. That is it. That is exactly what happened to my wheat. He pulled up files on his scanner, showing Dr. Yoon the data from his failed crops. Look, the same cellular breakdown. The same energy conversion problems. My plants were missing a specific type of soil organism. When I added it back, they recovered completely. Dr. Yoon studied the comparison between the plant data and the hatchling's readings. The patterns were remarkably similar. But how could an alien creature need the same kind of help as Earth plants? Maybe life finds similar solutions to similar problems, Junho suggested. Even on different worlds. The alien mother made a questioning sound. She could not understand their words, but she sensed the excitement in their voices. Hope flickered in her large eyes. Park Min-soo entered the room with Lee Soman, the colony's linguistics expert. Soman had been working with the crashed ship's computer systems, trying to establish basic communication. Any progress? Min-soo asked. I think we found the problem, Deho said. But I need to test something first. He turned to Soman. Can you ask her about her child's condition? What symptoms did she notice before the crash? Soman activated her translation device. The machine had learned some basic words from the ship's computer. She spoke slowly in the alien language, her words harsh and clicking. The mother's response was longer and more complex. The translator could only pick up fragments, but some words came through clearly. She says the child was born different, Soman reported. Weak, could not process food properly. Their doctors tried many treatments, but nothing worked. She was taking the child to a special medical facility when their ship had engine problems. Ask her about their homeworld, Deho said. What kind of place do they come from? More clicking sounds between Soman and the mother. The translation was rough, but the meaning was clear. A place of great forests, Soman said. Rich soil. Many growing things. The air smells of life, she says, Deho nodded. It made sense. A world with rich soil would be full of the microscopic organisms that helped plants process nutrients. The alien species had evolved to depend on these tiny helpers, just like some earth plants. But space is empty, he said. No soil organisms. No helpful bacteria. If this child was born during a long space journey, it never had a chance to develop the symbiotic relationship it needs. Dr. Yoon looked skeptical. That is a nice theory, but how do we test it? We do not have alien soil organisms. No, Deho said with growing excitement. But we have Earth soil organisms. And if life really does find similar solutions, maybe our bacteria can help. He pulled out a small container from his farming kit. Inside was a sample of the rich, dark soil from his farm. Soil that was full of the microorganisms that had saved his wheat crops. You want to give alien bacteria to a dying creature? Dr. Yoon asked. Not bacteria. Soil organisms. Tiny helpers that might be able to bridge the gap until we can find a better solution. Junho was already running scans on the soil sample. The microbial diversity is impressive. There are dozens of different organism types here. The hatchling made a weak sound, barely audible. Its breathing was getting slower. Time was running out. The alien mother looked at Deho with desperate eyes. She did not understand the details, but she could sense that he was trying to help. Slowly, carefully, she extended one massive clawed hand toward him. Deho reached out and touched her finger. The skin was warm and dry, like leather left in the sun. But there was no aggression in the contact, only a mother's plea for her child's life. I need to create a treatment chamber, he said. Something that can introduce the soil organisms gradually. Like creating a tiny ecosystem inside the hatchling's body. That is impossible, Dr. Yoon said. We do not have that kind of equipment. Then we build it, Deho replied. We use what we have. Medical equipment, farming tools, whatever works. Min-soo looked worried. The Colonial Authority will not approve experimental treatments on unknown aliens. The risk is too great. But the alien mother was watching Deho with complete trust. She had made her choice. In a universe of strangers, she was betting her child's life on the compassion of one human farmer. Then we do not ask permission. Daeho said quietly. We just do what is right. The hatchling's breathing hitched. Its small body shuddered. In the silence that followed, everyone in the room understood the same thing. They were about to attempt the impossible. And they had no time left to doubt themselves. The next few hours were the longest of Daeho's life. Dr. Yoon had tried every standard treatment she knew. Oxygen therapy, nutrient injections, cellular regeneration stimulants. Nothing worked. The hatchling's condition continued to worsen. The alien mother never left her child's side. She sat hunched over the small medical bed, her massive frame trembling with exhaustion and grief. Sometimes she would make soft clicking sounds, alien words that needed no translation. She was talking to her dying baby. Daeho watched from across the room, his heart heavy with familiar pain. He had sat beside another small bed once, holding his daughter's hand as her life slipped away. The doctors had done everything they could, but sometimes everything was not enough. The cellular breakdown is accelerating, Dr. Yoon said quietly. We have maybe 2 hours left. Park Min-soo paced near the door. The Colonial Council is demanding answers. They want to know why we are risking resources on unknown aliens. Some people think we should just let nature take its course. Nature? Daeho's voice was sharp with anger. There is nothing natural about watching a child die when you might be able to help. Your soil theory is just a guess, Min-soo replied. We have no proof it will work. We could make things worse. The alien mother looked up at the sound of raised voices. Her large eyes moved between the humans, sensing the tension. Lee So-min approached carefully with her translation device. Can you tell her what we are trying to do? Daeho asked. So-min spoke in the clicking alien language. The mother listened intently, then responded with a long series of complex sounds. The translator struggled with the words, catching only fragments. She says her people tried many treatments, So-min reported. Their best doctors, their most advanced medicine. Nothing worked. She took her child to the sacred healing temples. Even the ancient rituals failed. The mother continued speaking, her voice growing softer. She says she was taking the child to the edge of known space, to a place where her ancestors once found miraculous cures. But their ship broke down. She thought they would both die in the emptiness between stars. Daeho moved closer to the bed. The hatchling was so small, so fragile. Its breathing was barely visible now. Ask her if she will let me try, he said. Tell her I lost my own child once. I know what it feels like to watch them slip away. So-min translated the words. The alien mother's eyes widened with surprise, then understanding. She looked at Daeho for a long moment, seeing something in his face that crossed all barriers of species and language. The mother reached out with one clawed finger and gently touched Daeho's hand. When she spoke again, her voice was different, softer, sad. She says she is sorry for your loss, So-min translated. She asked if your treatment might have saved your child. Daeho felt tears sting his eyes. I do not know. My daughter's sickness was different. But I learned things from trying to save her. Things that might help now. The translation took longer this time. The mother listened carefully, then nodded slowly. She lifted her dying child with infinite gentleness and held the hatchling out toward Daeho. She says she trusts you, So-min whispered. She says you have the eyes of a true father. Daeho took the small alien creature in his arms. It weighed almost nothing. He could feel its tiny heart beating fast and weak against his chest. This close, he could see details that the scanners missed. The pale scales had a faint pattern like leaves in sunlight. There was beauty here even in dying. I need to prepare the treatment chamber, he said. But first I have to explain something to all of you. He looked around the room at the worried faces. Dr. Yoon, Park Min-soo, Choi Jun-ho, Lee So-min. Good people trying to do their best in an impossible situation. What I am planning is not real medicine, he said. I am a farmer. I know plants and soil, not alien biology. This could fail completely. Then why try? Min-soo asked. Daeho looked down at the hatchling in his arms. Because when my daughter was dying, a doctor tried something that should not have worked. An experimental treatment that had never been tested. It failed, but at least we tried. At least we fought. He gently returned the hatchling to its mother's arms. This little one deserves someone to fight for them too. Dr. Yoon was already moving toward her equipment. What do you need? A sterile isolation chamber. Something that can control atmosphere, temperature, and humidity. Then we modify it to introduce soil organisms gradually. That will take hours to set up, she said. We do not have hours, Choi Jun-ho stepped forward. The emergency stasis unit. It is designed to slow down biological processes in trauma patients. We could modify it. That might work, Dr. Yoon agreed, but we would need to completely rebuild the filtration system. As the team began planning, the alien mother watched with growing hope. She could not understand their technical discussions, but she recognized the determination in their voices. These strange creatures were going to fight for her child. Park Min-soo received a message on his communication device. His face grew dark as he read it. "The Colonial Authority is ordering us to stop," he said. "They are sending a team to take control of the situation. How long do we have?" Daeho asked. "Maybe an hour before they arrive." Dr. Yoon was already wheeling the stasis unit into position. "Then we work fast." The next hour was a blur of activity. Junho analyzed soil samples while Dr. Yoon reconfigured the medical equipment. Daeho worked to create the right mixture of organisms, drawing on years of agricultural experience. The alien mother helped where she could, her massive strength useful for moving heavy equipment. But mostly she watched, her eyes full of desperate hope. When the modified chamber was ready, it looked like something built from spare parts. Which it was. Medical monitors connected to farming sensors. Life support systems jury-rigged with irrigation equipment. It should not have worked. But sometimes the impossible was just another word for untested. "Are we ready?" Dr. Yoon asked. Daeho looked at the strange machine they had built. Then he looked at the dying hatchling in its mother's arms. The small creature's breathing was so weak now that he had to watch carefully to see if it was still alive. "As ready as we can be," he said. The alien mother understood that the moment had come. She lifted her child one last time, pressing her large head against the small one. She whispered something in her own language, words that sounded like a prayer. Then, with infinite trust, she placed her dying baby in the hands of strangers who had promised to try the impossible. The chamber sealed with a soft hiss. Inside, the hatchling lay still and pale while machines hummed quietly around it. On the monitors, weak life signs flickered like candle flames in the wind. Outside, through the medical center windows, they could see vehicles approaching in the distance. The Colonial Authority was coming to shut them down, but for now, in this small room, hope was still alive. A mother's love had bridged the gap between worlds, and strangers had become family in the face of loss. The real test was just beginning. The Colonial Authority team arrived just as the treatment chamber finished its first cycle. Commander Bae-juan stormed into the medical center with 6 officers, their faces hard with disapproval. "This operation stops now," Commander Bae announced. "You are conducting unauthorized experiments on unknown alien life forms. The risk to the colony is unacceptable." Park Min-soo stepped forward. "Commander, the situation is under control. We are simply providing medical assistance." "Medical assistance?" Bae looked at the strange machine cobbled together from farming and medical equipment. "This looks like something built in a scrapyard, not a hospital." The alien mother rose to her full height, sensing the threat to her child's treatment. Her deep growl filled the room. The officers reached for their weapons, but Commander Bae held up a hand to stop them. "See?" Bae said. "These creatures are dangerous. We should evacuate them to a secure facility immediately." "She is not dangerous," Daeho said firmly. "She is a mother protecting her child, just like any human parent would do." Inside the treatment chamber, monitors showed the hatchling's vital signs. They were still weak, but something was changing. The cellular energy readings had stopped dropping. For the first time in hours, the numbers were holding steady. Dr. Yoon studied the data with growing excitement. "Look at this. The soil organisms are establishing themselves in the digestive system. They are creating a symbiotic relationship." Choi Jun-ho peered over her shoulder at the readings. "The cellular conversion rate is improving. Slowly, but it is definitely improving." Commander Bae was not interested in medical data. "I have orders to secure all alien materials and transport them to the orbital research station. This primitive treatment ends now." The alien mother understood enough to know her child was in danger. She moved to stand between the humans and the treatment chamber. Her massive claws extended and her scales darkened with anger. The growl that came from her throat was like distant thunder. "Commander, please," Lee So-min said urgently. "The treatment is working. If we stop now, the hatchling will die." "That is not our responsibility," Bae replied coldly. "Our job is to protect human colonists, not alien invaders." "Invaders?" Daeho stepped between Commander Bae and the alien mother. "They crashed here by accident. The mother was trying to save her dying child. How does that make them invaders? The standoff stretched tense and silent. Officers had their hands on weapons. The alien mother was ready to fight. In the middle of it all, a small alien child fought for life inside a machine built from hope and spare parts. Then Nam Taeyang arrived. The colony's chief engineer pushed through the officers with a box of equipment in his arms. Behind him came Song Minji, the agricultural specialist, carrying her own collection of tools. "Sorry I am late," Taeyang said to Daeho. "I brought the modifications you requested for the atmospheric controls." Commander Bay stared at them. "What modifications?" "The ones needed to fine-tune the organism introduction rate," Song Minji explained. "The soil bacteria need very specific conditions to bond with alien cellular structures." "You are all under arrest," Bay announced. "This illegal operation is over." But as he spoke, something miraculous happened inside the treatment chamber. The hatchling moved. It was barely noticeable at first. A small shifting of the tiny limbs. Then the breathing became deeper, more regular. The pale scales began to show faint traces of color. Dr. Yoon could barely contain her excitement. "The symbiotic relationship is working. The organisms are helping the cells process stored energy. Look at these readings." Even Commander Bay found himself staring at the monitors. The improvement was undeniable. Something impossible was happening right before their eyes. The alien mother saw the change too. Her aggressive posture softened. Hope replaced anger in her large eyes. She pressed one massive hand against the chamber wall as close to her child as she could get. "This is incredible," Junho whispered. "Cross-species symbiosis. We are watching evolution in real time." Taeyang was already connecting his equipment to the chamber. "The atmospheric mixture needs adjustment. The bacteria are consuming oxygen faster than expected." "I can modify the nutrient solution," Minji added. "The organisms need trace minerals that are not present in standard medical supplies." Commander Bay watched his authority crumble as the colonists worked together to save an alien child. "This is still unauthorized. The risks are unknown." "The only risk now is stopping," Dr. Yoon said firmly. "The process has begun. If we interrupt it, we could kill the symbiotic organisms and the hatchling." Inside the chamber, the small creature stirred again. Its breathing was definitely stronger. The faint colors in its scales were becoming brighter. The alien mother made soft clicking sounds, alien words that sounded like encouragement. Like a lullaby, the universal language of a parent comforting their child. "How long before we know if it worked?" Commander Bay asked despite himself. "The cellular integration should complete within 6 hours, Junho said. But we are already seeing positive signs." Daeho watched the readings with careful attention. The energy conversion rate was steadily improving. The soil organisms were adapting to their alien environment faster than anyone had expected. It was as if they recognized their purpose across the barriers of species and evolution. "I need to make final adjustments to the mineral balance," he said. "The organisms are established, but they need the right nutrients to thrive." As he worked, Daeho thought about his own journey from terraforming specialist to farmer. He had learned to read the subtle language of soil and plants, to understand what living things needed to survive in hostile environments. Those skills were saving a life today, in ways he never could have imagined. Commander Bay found himself drawn into the process despite his orders. "What happens when the treatment is complete? How do we know the organism will be stable?" "We do not," Dr. Yoon admitted. "This is completely experimental." But the alternative was certain death. The hatchling's movement was becoming more noticeable. Its tiny hands flexed and relaxed. The breathing was almost normal now. Most remarkably, the scales were developing the same brilliant color patterns as its mother. The alien mother saw the change and let out a sound unlike any she had made before. Not a roar of anger or desperation, but something that could only be called joy. Pure, overwhelming relief. "The symbiotic integration is nearly complete," Junho reported. "The organisms have established permanent colonies in the digestive system. They are processing nutrients and converting them to usable energy." Song Minji checked her agricultural sensors. "The bacterial balance is stable. The ecosystem inside the hatchling is thriving." For the first time since the crash, the alien mother relaxed completely. She settled beside the treatment chamber, her massive form curled protectively around it. But the aggression was gone. In its place was gratitude so profound that it needed no translation. Commander Bay put away his weapon. How soon can we move them to proper medical facilities? They should not be moved for at least 24 hours, Dr. Yoon said. The symbiotic relationship needs time to fully establish. As if responding to her words, the hatchling opened its eyes for the first time since the crash. Large, intelligent eyes just like its mother's. The small creature looked around with growing awareness, taking in the strange world it had been born into. The impossible had happened. Life had found a way across the vast spaces between worlds, and in a small colony medical center, strangers had become family through the simple act of refusing to let a child die. The real miracle was just beginning. 3 days later, the impossible had become reality. The hatchling sat up in its recovery bed, its scales now brilliant with health. The small creature looked around with bright, curious eyes, taking in the strange world of the human colony. Keth, as Lee Soman had learned to call the young one, was completely transformed. Where once there had been a dying, pale shadow, now there was a vibrant alien child. The symbiotic organisms had not just saved its life. They had given it strength beyond what its own species normally possessed. Dr. Yoon ran her final scans with amazement. The cellular energy levels are higher than anything we recorded from the mother. The soil organisms have created a perfect partnership with the alien biology. Thyra, the massive alien mother, watched her child with joy that filled the entire medical center. She had been teaching the humans her language while learning theirs. Simple words at first, but communication was growing stronger each day. Keth strong now, she said in careful human speech. Stronger than homeworld children. Your dirt magic made my baby new. Daeho smiled at her description. Dirt magic. In a way, she was right. The microscopic life in New Jeju's soil had performed something that looked like magic to both species. Captain Jang Hyuk had arrived from the orbital station that morning. The tall, serious man represented Earth's Colonial Command. He studied the medical reports with growing interest. This changes everything we know about cross-species biology, he said. The implications are enormous. What implications? Commander Bay asked. The local authority leader had become surprisingly supportive once he saw the results. If human soil organisms can bond with alien biology, it suggests life is more connected than we thought. This discovery could revolutionize medicine, agriculture, even space exploration. But Daeho was more interested in the immediate effects. Young Keth had begun to explore beyond the medical center. The hatchling moved with energy and grace, its new biological partnership making it faster and stronger than normal for its age. The child is developing abilities we do not understand, Dr. Yoon reported. Enhanced strength, improved healing, increased intelligence. The symbiotic relationship is still evolving. That was when the ships arrived. The first to appear were human vessels. 3 large cruisers dropped out of hyperspace and took positions around New Jeju. Captain Jang explained they were research ships, sent to study the breakthrough. But an hour later, something much larger appeared on the horizon. The Valkyrie fleet was massive, 12 warships, each one twice the size of the human vessels. They moved into orbit with the precision of a military formation. Their message was simple and clear. They wanted their people back. Thyra received the communication from her own kind with mixed emotions. She spoke with the fleet commander in her native language, the clicking sounds sharp with tension. What are they saying? Soman asked as she worked to translate. The Valkyrie High Command is suspicious, Thyra explained in her improving human speech. They think you changed Keth for war purposes. They think this is weapon making. The accusation sent shockwaves through the colony. Commander Bay immediately contacted the human fleet. This is ridiculous, Captain Jang said during the emergency meeting. We saved the child's life. We are not making weapons. But the Valkyrie commander was not convinced. Through Thyra's translation, his message was stern and threatening. He says Keth is no longer purely Valkyrie. Thyra reported sadly. The High Command thinks you made my child into something dangerous. They want to take us away before we can be studied. What do you want to do? Daeho asked her directly. Thyra looked at her thriving child, then at the humans who had saved its life. The decision was difficult but clear. I want to stay, she said. Keth belongs to both worlds now. This is where we learn to live. The diplomatic crisis deepened when both fleets received new orders. Earth Command wanted to claim the breakthrough as a strategic advantage. The Valkyrie High Command saw it as a potential threat that needed to be controlled. Neither side wanted to start a war, but neither was willing to back down. Young Keth seemed to understand the tension even if the details were beyond its comprehension. The small creature moved between the human and Velkari representatives, touching each with small clawed hands. Its scales shifted colors and patterns that both species found beautiful. "Look at the child," Deho said during one particularly heated negotiation. "Keth is not a weapon or a threat. It is a bridge. Living proof that our species can work together." But military minds thought differently. The human researchers wanted to study the symbiotic process. The Velkari warriors saw contamination of their pure bloodline. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Other alien species had been monitoring the situation. Ships began appearing from across known space. The Zentari merchant fleets, the Mokri explorer vessels. Even the mysterious Nethys sent observers. News of the impossible cure had spread through the galaxy faster than official communications. Dozens of species had medical conditions similar to what Keth had suffered. They all wanted to learn about the human soil organisms. "This is bigger than just our two species," Captain Zhang realized. This discovery could help countless worlds. The Velkari commander was forced to reconsider when 3 different species requested permission to visit New Jedju. The tiny farming colony had suddenly become the most important medical research site in known space. Thyra used her influence with her own people to negotiate a compromise. She would stay on New Jedju with Keth, serving as a cultural ambassador. The colony would become a joint research facility, staffed by multiple species, but she had one additional demand. Deho must lead the medical research, she insisted. "He understands the dirt magic better than anyone. He saved my child when your doctors and our doctors both failed." The former terraforming specialist found himself at the center of a galactic revolution. His simple farming techniques had opened a new chapter in interspecies cooperation. Dr. Yoon was appointed as the facility's chief medical officer. Choi Junho would head xenobiological research. Nam Taeyang and Song Minji would develop the agricultural applications. But it was Deho's insight that had made it all possible. The man who had failed to save his own daughter had found a way to save children across the galaxy. As the various fleets settled into peaceful orbits, young Keth played in Deho's fields. The hatchling's scales shimmered with traces of the beneficial organisms that had saved its life. Where it walked, the crops grew stronger and more vibrant. The soil beneath its feet teemed with microscopic life that belonged to no single world, but to the growing family of species that called New Jedju home. Thera watched her child with pride and gratitude. Her desperate roar had become a song of joy that echoed across the valley. In trying to save one small life, strangers had planted the seeds of understanding that would grow between the stars. The impossible had become possible, and it was only the beginning. 6 months had passed since the crash that changed everything. New Jeju was no longer a quiet farming colony. It had become the most important research center in known space, where beings from dozens of worlds worked together to unlock the secrets of symbiotic medicine. The morning sun painted the valley in golden light, just as it had on that first day. But now the fields were different. Alien plants grew alongside earth crops. Strange flowers bloomed in colors that had no names in human language. The soil itself had become richer, more alive as organisms from many worlds learned to work together. Daiho walked through his transformed farm, checking on the various experiments. In one section, Centauri healing moss grew in perfect partnership with earth bacteria. In another, Mokari food plants thrived in soil enhanced with Velkari mineral supplements. But the most amazing sight was young Keth, running through the rows of crops with boundless energy. The hatchling had grown rapidly in the past months. Its scales now showed patterns that shifted and changed like living art. Where it played, the plants grew stronger and more vibrant. "Good morning, Uncle Deho," Keth called out in perfect human speech. The young alien had learned languages faster than anyone thought possible. "Good morning, little one," Deho replied. "How are you feeling today?" "Strong and happy," Keth answered with the innocent joy that only children possessed. "Mama says we have new visitors coming today." Indeed, another ship had arrived during the night. The Ashanti delegation from the Outer Rim had come seeking help for their own medical crisis. Like so many others, they hoped that New Jeju's miracle treatment could save their people. Thyra emerged from the research complex, her massive form now a familiar and welcome sight in the colony. She had learned to speak several human languages fluently and served as the primary liaison between species. The Ashanti representatives are very worried, she reported to Diho. Their young ones are born with weak bones. Their doctors think it might be another symbiotic problem. Dr. Yoon joined them, carrying her medical scanner. Over the months, she had become the galaxy's leading expert on cross-species symbiotic treatment. Her techniques had already saved hundreds of lives across dozens of worlds. I have been studying their medical data, she said. The bone weakness appears when their people live away from their home world for too long. It could definitely be a missing organism issue. Choi Junho appeared from the laboratory complex, his arms full of soil samples from various worlds. The xenobiologist had been working to catalog the beneficial organisms found in different planetary environments. I think we can help them, he said excitedly. The Ashanti homeworld has calcium-processing bacteria that are similar to what we find in Earth coral reefs. We might be able to create a hybrid organism. This had become the pattern at New Jedju. Each new species that arrived brought their own biological challenges and their own unique organisms. The researchers had learned to mix and match these microscopic helpers, creating new symbiotic relationships that had never existed before. Ambassador Ryu Seungwon had arrived from Earth the previous week to formalize the colony's new status. The diplomatic negotiations had been complex, with multiple governments and species councils all wanting some control over the revolutionary research. The interspecies medical cooperation treaty is ready for final signing, he announced during the morning briefing. New Jeju will become the first truly multi-species research colony in known history. The treaty was a masterpiece of compromise. Each species would contribute researchers and resources. All discoveries would be shared freely. No single government could claim ownership over the life-saving treatments. But perhaps most importantly, Daeho would remain in charge of the agricultural research that made it all possible. His simple farming techniques had become the foundation for a new type of medicine. I never imagined this when I came here to grow wheat, he said with wonder in his voice. Young Keth climbed onto his lap, the hatchling's warm weight a comfortable presence. Uncle Daeho, will you teach me about the dirt magic today? Daeho smiled. Thyra's phrase had stuck. Everyone now called the symbiotic treatment process dirt magic, even in official scientific papers. Of course, little one. But first we should welcome our new guests. The Ashanti delegation consisted of 3 tall, thin beings with skin like polished stone and eyes that sparkled with inner light. They moved with grace despite their obvious worry for their suffering children. Through translation devices, they explained their situation. Their people were explorers and traders who spent generations traveling between stars. But children born during these long journeys developed weak bones that could not support their bodies. We have tried everything, their leader said sadly. Our young ones cannot stand or walk properly when they are away from our homeworld soil. Daeho studied the soil samples they had brought from their planet. Under the microscope, he could see organisms that looked remarkably similar to the calcium-processing bacteria found in Earth's ocean environments. Dr. Yoon, what do you think about combining their soil bacteria with our coral reef organisms? He asked. It could work, she replied after running some quick tests. The calcium processing methods are very similar. We might be able to create a hybrid that works in any environment. The next few hours were spent in careful experimentation. Soil samples were mixed and tested. Bacterial cultures were grown and analyzed. Slowly, patiently, they worked to create a new form of life that could help the Ashanti children. By evening, they had a promising result. The hybrid organism seemed stable and showed strong calcium processing activity. We will need to run more tests, Dr. Yoon cautioned, but this looks very encouraging. The Ashanti leader's stone-like features showed the first signs of hope. If this works, you will have saved thousands of our children. As the sun set over the valley, Daeho found himself standing in the same spot where he had first seen the crashed alien ship. So much had changed since that morning. His quiet farm had become a beacon of hope for countless worlds. Thyra approached with young Keth, who was now almost as tall as a human teenager despite being less than a year old. The hatchling's rapid growth was another gift of the symbiotic treatment. Are you happy with how things turned out? Thyra asked in her careful human speech. Daeho watched the research complex where scientists from a dozen worlds worked together. Ships from even more species waited in orbit, hoping for help with their own medical challenges. His simple farming colony had become the center of a galactic community. "I think about my daughter sometimes," he said quietly. "I could not save her, but maybe her memory lives on in all the children we help here." Keth took his hand with small, warm claws. "Uncle Deho, Mama told me about your daughter. I think she would be proud of you." The simple words from an alien child touched something deep in Deho's heart. Perhaps this was how healing really worked, not by forgetting the pain, but by transforming it into something that could help others. "Yes," he said softly, "I think she would be proud." Above them, the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Each point of light represented worlds where children lived and played and grew. And now, thanks to the impossible partnership between human farmers and alien families, many more of those children would have the chance to grow up healthy and strong. The roar that had once spoken of desperation had become a symphony of cooperation that echoed across the galaxy. In trying to save one small life, they had planted seeds of hope that would bloom between the stars for generations to come. And in the rich soil of New Jedju, where organisms from countless worlds had learned to work together, the future was growing strong.